There's something hidden in the mathematics of power that no empire has ever escaped. A sequence so precise, so predictable, that it has claimed every dominant civilization for the last 5 centuries. 3 global superpowers have followed it to the end. Each one believed they were exempt. Each one was wrong. And here's what should disturb you. The United States isn't approaching this pattern. We're already deep inside it. 5 stages complete, 2 remaining. The question isn't if it will happen. The question is, do you know what comes next? Before we trace the pattern through history, you need to understand what imperial death actually looks like. Not in textbooks, in real time. Most people imagine empire collapse as conquest, armies at the gates, invasion, defeat. That's not how empires die. They die from exhaustion, from over-promising and under-delivering, from spending money they don't have on commitments they can't keep. The decline begins internally, quietly, almost invisibly. At first, nothing seems wrong. The currency still circulates, the military still projects force, citizens still believe in the system. But beneath the surface, structural integrity is dissolving. Resources flow to the wrong places. Talented people emigrate. Productivity stalls. Debt accumulates. The empire becomes a machine consuming more energy than it generates. Then comes acceleration. Allies begin hedging their bets. Adversaries test boundaries. Trade partners explore alternatives. The reserve currency loses its GRIP. And suddenly, the very advantages that built the empire become fatal weaknesses. Your currency, once demanded globally, floods back home. Your military, stretched across continents, becomes unsustainable. Your promises, once backed by strength, become worthless. This isn't speculation. This is recorded history. 3 times in 500 years, the pattern has run its course completely. 3 superpowers, 3 identical sequences, 3 absolute collapses. And each time, the empire believed it was immune. Spain, 16th century, the original blueprint. When Spanish conquistadors reached the Americas, they discovered something unprecedented. Mountains of silver, rivers of gold, wealth beyond comprehension. By 1560, Spanish treasure fleets were hauling 400 tons of silver annually across the Atlantic. Spain became the first nation to control the global money supply. The Spanish real was accepted everywhere. Every merchant wanted Spanish silver. Every kingdom needed Spanish gold. King Philip II ruled the wealthiest empire in human history, and he spent every ounce of it. Stage 1. Military overextension. Spain committed forces everywhere simultaneously. Wars against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against France in Italy, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against English privateers in the Caribbean, against indigenous resistance in the Philippines and Americas. 4 continents, endless conflicts, catastrophic costs. By 1580, military spending consumed 60% of Spain's revenue. And still, it wasn't sufficient. Stage 2. Currency debasement. When tax revenue couldn't cover expenses, the crown made the classic mistake. They diluted the currency. Silver coins were mixed with copper. A coin stamped as pure silver became half copper, then 75% copper. The face value remained constant. The real value collapsed. By 1600, Spanish silver contained almost no silver. Merchants refused them. Inflation exploded. The currency that had ruled global trade became worthless metal. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Philip borrowed from Italian bankers, from German financiers, from anyone willing to lend. In 1557, 20 years into his reign, Spain declared its first bankruptcy. They defaulted, restructured the debt, and kept borrowing. They declared bankruptcy again in 1560, again in 1575, again in 1596. 4 defaults in 40 years, each time promising reform, each time repeating the cycle. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. Here's the paradox that killed Spain. They had unlimited wealth, and it destroyed them. When money flows endlessly, production stops. Why farm when you can import food? Why manufacture when you can buy finished goods? Why innovate when you can simply purchase? Spanish nobility considered manual work beneath them. Factories closed, farms deteriorated, every commodity was imported. The gold and silver arrived from the Americas and immediately flowed out to France, England, the Netherlands. Spain became a pipeline. Wealth passed through but never stayed. By 1620, Spain produced almost nothing. Total dependence on imports, total dependence on silver to pay for everything. And when the mines depleted, when silver production fell, the entire system imploded. Stage 5. Social decay. Crime surged, beggars crowded Madrid's streets. The educated emigrated to productive nations. Engineers left for England, merchants for the Netherlands, artisans for France. Spain was left with bureaucrats and soldiers, consumers of wealth, not creators. By 1640, Portugal declared independence. By 1650, the Netherlands broke free, taking Spain's wealthiest territory. By 1700, the Spanish Empire existed on paper only, economically dead, militarily irrelevant, financially ruined. The world superpower reduced to a regional country in 80 years. They never recovered. The descendants of conquistadors became a vacation destination. That's what the pattern does. Britain, 20th century, the empire where the sun never set. At its zenith in 1900, the British Empire controlled a quarter of Earth's land surface. 400 million subjects. The pound sterling wasn't just currency, it was the foundation of global commerce. Every major contract denominated in pounds, every central bank held British bonds. London was the financial axis of the world, and just like Spain 3 centuries earlier, they believed it was permanent. Stage 1, military overextension. Britain had obligations everywhere, garrisons in India, colonies across Africa, protectorates in the Middle East, naval bases in the Pacific, territories in the Caribbean. They had to defend 6 continents simultaneously. When World War I erupted in 1914, Britain faced an impossible choice: stay neutral and watch Europe self-destruct, or intervene and bankrupt the empire to win. They chose war. The conflict cost Britain $44 billion. That's over $1 trillion in modern currency. They borrowed from everyone, primarily from America. By 1918, Britain was a debtor nation. The creditor had become the debtor. But they'd won. They kept the empire. They believed recovery was possible. It wasn't. Stage 2, currency debasement. The pound was supposed to be backed by gold, but the war had drained Britain's gold reserves. They'd shipped gold to America to purchase weapons, food, supplies. By 1920, reserves were half their pre-war levels. Britain attempted to maintain the pound's value anyway. They returned to the gold standard in 1925 at the pre-war rate. But the pound was overvalued. British exports became too expensive. Manufacturing declined. Unemployment soared. The government maintained high interest rates to defend the currency, which devastated the domestic economy. By 1931, they couldn't sustain it. Britain abandoned the gold standard. The pound lost 25% of its value overnight. The global reserve currency had just admitted it couldn't honor its commitments. Stage 3, debt spiral. Britain never recovered from World War I debt. Then World War II began. Another $130 billion in costs, more borrowing from America. By 1945, Britain owed the United States and Canada more than their entire GDP. They'd won the war, but the empire was finished. They couldn't defend it, couldn't afford it, couldn't maintain it. Stage 4, loss of empire. In 1947, Britain surrendered India, the crown jewel, the source of wealth for 2 centuries. Gone. Over the next 20 years, they lost everything. Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Caribbean. By 1970, the British Empire existed only in history. Stage 5, currency collapse. The pound kept falling. In 1940, £1 bought $4. By 1950, $2.80. By 1970, $2.40. By 1985, $1.30. Today, $1.27. The global reserve currency became a regional currency. Britain maintained the appearance of power, permanent UN Security Council seat, nuclear weapons, special relationship with America. But everyone understood the truth. They were a former power, a memorial to what used to be great. The empire was gone. It never returned. The Soviet Union, 1945 to 1991, the superpower that died in 900 days. After World War II, the USSR emerged as a colossus: nuclear arsenal, massive military, control over Eastern Europe, satellites in orbit. And they believed they represented the future. Communism would bury capitalism. The Soviet model would dominate. For 45 years, they matched America, built more tanks, more missiles, more troops. But beneath the surface, the economy was dying. Stage 1. Military overextension. The Soviet Union spent 15 to 20% of GDP on the military, triple America's spending. They had to match American technology, American reach, American alliances, but their economy was a fraction of the size. They occupied Afghanistan, propped up Cuba, supported Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, Ethiopia, Nicaragua. Everywhere America had influence, they had to counter. The cost was impossible to sustain. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. Soviet growth stopped in the 1970s. Oil revenue kept the lights on, but nothing else functioned. Factories produced garbage. Farms failed. Technology fell decades behind. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was importing grain. A nation with the world's best farmland couldn't feed itself. Why? Because central planning doesn't work. Because innovation dies under control. Because people don't produce when there's no incentive. Stage 3. Currency collapse. The ruble was never real currency. It couldn't be exchanged internationally. Even Soviet citizens didn't trust it. They used dollars when possible. The government had to purchase foreign goods with gold and oil because nobody wanted rubles. By 1985, oil prices crashed. Gold reserves depleted. They were running out of real money. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Eastern Europe left. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany. Gone in 12 months. The satellites that provided strategic depth vanished. The Soviet government couldn't stop it. They were broke. Stage 5. Complete collapse. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. 900 days from Berlin Wall to total dissolution. No war, no invasion, just economic implosion. The military couldn't be paid. The government couldn't function. The ruble became worthless. A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed from internal economic failure. The pattern had run its course again. Overextension, currency failure, debt, loss of empire, collapse. And now we arrive at the question that should keep you awake. Where is America in this pattern? Let me show you something that will change how you see every policy decision, every economic report, every political debate. The United States isn't approaching the 7-stage sequence. We're already executing it. Stage by stage. Stage 1. Military overextension. Check. The United States maintains over 750 military installations in 80 countries. We have deployed personnel in 150 nations. We're committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, fighting in the Middle East, countering China, countering Russia, countering Iran. Our military budget exceeds $850 billion annually, more than the next 10 nations combined. And it's insufficient. We're stretched thin. Equipment is aging. Recruitment is failing. And we have commitments we cannot fulfill. If China moves on Taiwan, if Russia advances into Poland, if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, we cannot respond to all simultaneously. We're overextended, exactly like Spain, exactly like Britain, exactly like the USSR. Check. Stage 2. Currency debasement. Check. In 1971, Nixon ended dollar convertibility to gold. The dollar became pure fiat currency, backed by nothing but trust. Since 2000, the money supply has expanded 400%. Since 2020, we've printed over $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. We're not mixing copper into silver coins, we're printing unlimited paper. The mechanism differs. The result is identical. Currency debasement, check. Stage 3. Debt spiral, check. The United States owes $36 trillion, 120% of GDP. Interest payments alone approach $1 trillion annually. We're spending more on interest than on defense, more on interest than on education, infrastructure, research combined. We run deficits every year, 1.8 trillion in 2024, during economic growth, during peacetime. We borrow to pay interest on previous borrowing. Spain defaulted 4 times, Britain borrowed until collapse. The USSR ran out of money. We're on the same trajectory, debt spiral, check. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity, check. America doesn't manufacture anymore. We design, we finance, we consume, but we don't produce. Our manufacturing base has been systematically dismantled, shipped to China, Mexico, Vietnam. We import 800 billion more than we export annually. We're dependent on foreign supply chains for everything. Pharmaceuticals, electronics, steel, even critical military components. Just like Spain became dependent on imports while silver flowed out, we're dependent on imports while dollars flow out. And just like Spain, when the money stops, we're in trouble. Loss of productive capacity. Check. Stage 5. Social decay. Check. Trust in institutions is at historic lows. Crime is rising in major cities. Homelessness has exploded. Drug overdoses kill 100,000 Americans every year. Life expectancy is declining. The best talent is leaving or disengaging. Fertility rates are collapsing. Political dysfunction is absolute. We can't agree on anything, can't fix anything, can't build anything. The signs of decay are everywhere, but everyone pretends normalcy. Social decay. Check. 5 stages complete. The Soviet Union made it to stage 5 before total collapse. So did Britain. Spain lasted longer, but the pattern was identical. We're not approaching the pattern. We're deep inside it. Stage 6 is loss of reserve currency status. This is when allies begin diversifying, when international trade shifts to alternative currencies, when the dollar comes flooding back because no one needs to hold it anymore. We're seeing early indications. BRICS nations developing payment alternatives, central banks accumulating gold at unprecedented rates, China and Russia trading in yuan and rubles, Saudi Arabia accepting yuan for oil. The cracks are forming. The process has begun. Stage 7 is collapse, not gradual decline, sudden implosion. The Soviet Union went from superpower to non-existent in 900 days. Britain lost the empire in 20 years. Spain took longer, but the result was the same. When the reserve currency fails, when the debt becomes mathematically impossible, when the military cannot be funded, empires don't decline gracefully. They collapse quickly, brutally, completely. And everyone who believed it couldn't happen here learns the same lesson every empire learns. It can, and it does. 3 empires followed this pattern to completion: Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union. Each believed they were exceptional. Each believed they were different. Each believed the laws of economics didn't apply to them. They were wrong every time. We're telling ourselves the same lies right now. We're different. We have technology. We have the dollar. We're America. Nothing can touch us. But the pattern doesn't care about exceptionalism. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot spend beyond your means indefinitely. You cannot maintain empire without productive capacity. You cannot debase currency without consequences. You cannot skip stage 6 and 7 after completing 1 through 5. The sequence is locked in. The only variable is timing. Maybe we have 10 years, maybe 5, maybe less. But the pattern says collapse is approaching. And when it arrives, it won't be gradual. It'll be sudden. A currency crisis triggering a debt crisis triggering a political crisis. Overnight, the superpower becomes a cautionary tale. The reserve currency becomes a regional currency. The empire becomes a memory. 3 times it happened before. The pattern says we're next. Since 2020, we've accelerated through every stage, printed more money, accumulated more debt, extended more military commitments, gutted more production capacity, deepened social fractures. We're not walking the path anymore. We're running down it. And the end is visible if you know the pattern. Perhaps we'll find an escape. Perhaps America can accomplish what Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union couldn't. Perhaps we'll reform, rebuild, restore productive capacity. Perhaps this time truly is different. But the pattern says otherwise. The mathematics say otherwise. And history, which has witnessed empires die the same way repeatedly across centuries, says we're about to learn the lesson the hard way. The real question isn't whether the pattern will complete. The real question is what comes after. Because when the American empire falls, when the reserve currency collapses, when the debt implodes, the consequences won't be contained to one nation. The global system that has existed since 1945 will die with it. And what replaces it, what rises from the ruins, will define the next century. The pattern has never been wrong. 3 empires, 3 complete collapses, all following the same sequence, and we're next in line.